Hello, folks. Tom here,
And Rhonda.
yeah. This is like a public service announcement, I suppose,
Yes.
on behalf of all. I should actually be wearing a dinner jacket and speaking in a plummy voice, but
Can you do a plummy voice?
well, I can endeavour to do my best. This is the OOP broadcasting from Stromness. But the reason for this is because we had some technical problems with recording this when it was done remotely via a laptop. And the one thing that we discovered is that when the ferry is about to sail or comes in, it interferes with the broadcast, with the transmission, the recording, I suppose.
Yeah.
It also interferes with our telly as well sometimes.
It does, yes. But we definitely discovered that this is one of the quirky things about living on a Scottish island is the ferry will interfere because we're very close to the ferry where our house is, and it definitely interfered for about half an hour. So it may try your patience in the first half hour. This is the warning. If you're really sensitive to sound quality, that first half hour might be a bit trying. So you can skip over it if you want to. But we thought we would make it available anyway, even though it's a bit, under par quality-wise, because some people will just want to hear what the man has to say anyway.
Well, this is the important thing, is that, the sound quality isn't what we would have hoped for the first half hour, but what Peter has to say about the background and all that to his work and his life is absolutely 100% worth listening to. And then it does get better after that.
Yeah, so it's up to you folks, but just to be forewarned, that first half hour is a bit rough.
Mm-hmm. And then we did have a few breaks in between as well when the internet was freezing. So
it kept dropping. So where I have inserted little musical interludes of a very few seconds, that is where the call got dropped. We had to start over again. So yes, it's a bit rough, but it's definitely it's one of our best and one that's really worth listening to.
And Peter Lord, apart from being an absolute legend in British entertainment and claymation animation, is just a superbly lovely guy.
He's just really nice.
And really, really busy. So it was amazing that he could give us as much time as he did. And he had to be away for another thing afterwards, so we couldn't just kind of carry on.
Couldn't keep him all night.
Yeah. But I really appreciate the time that he gave us. It's a fascinating insight into a magical world, which I'm sure he will enjoy, regardless of sound quality.
Right. And just while we've got people here hanging on our every word, just wanted to mention also, if you're not aware of it, we have a website, orkneyology.com, which has basically all of our books and all of our web pages and interesting things, and Tom's recordings of almost 200 recordings of stories. So check out the website if you haven't already, orkneyology.com.
And there's a newsletter you can sign up for as well, which is free.
Yes. And you often get coupons and things, so it's a good thing to sign up for.
Yeah. And you get my burblings and...
Yes, your burblings.
And your knowledge.
So thank you very much for your patience, folks, and enjoy the show.
In Orkney, we used to have an expression, "I'll be hour with the moon," meaning that I would come and visit you when the moon is full to light my way. Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of Hour with the Moon. It's Christmas is approaching, and we're all getting prepared for that. But I've got a special Christmas present for you, a very special guest, who I met this year in Orkney, and it is Peter Lord, the man behind Aardman Films, and Morph's daddy. People of a certain vintage, you wouldn't understand exactly who Morph is, but we'll talk about him later. But welcome, Peter.
Thank you, Tom.
Well, thank you for agreeing to this, because I know you're a busy man.
Still working, yep.
Yeah. So, just to go back to the kind of early days, how did all that begin? I mean, I used to make plasticine men when I was a kid. Quite a few years ago now. Was that something that you did, or how was the interest in animation? Where did that come from?
I mean, like you, like so many kids of my generation anyway, plasticine was a very common thing around the home and at school. And, I made plasticine figures when I was small. In fact, one of my earliest memories of the first house we lived in was sitting at the kitchen table with my mum, and we were making plasticine figures together, for fun. So that was a normal childish activity, but separately from that one, I was at school in Surrey. I don't come from there. I come from Bristol, but I ended up in Surrey. In fact, I'd been with my family living in Australia for 3 years. We came home from Sydney. Ended up in suburban Surrey, and new school, empty desk. And I sat down, the one empty desk in the classroom. That was next to a guy called David Sproxton, as I found out. And so we became friends. Of course, we were both 12, I think, at that time. Became friends, did things that you normally do, family things, just grew up. And one day, when we must have been about 16, we experimented with animation. And I'm happy to say that now it's really easy to experiment with animation, because if you've got a phone or access to a phone, it's very easy to find an app which you can do animation with. But when we were like 16, nobody was doing it. It was a weird thing to do, strange, esoteric thing to do. And when I say de-animation, I mean, if you saw it, you would not be impressed. It wasn't interesting. There were no stories. There were no characters. It was just things moving. But making things move is exciting in itself, So so that's how we started. We imagine the scene. The schoolboys. We were working on Dave's family's kitchen table. We had a camera. We had access to a camera. Well, I haven't said how easy it is now, but then it wasn't so easy, so it was unusual to have a camera. And Dave and I started experimenting. And that first experiment, that hobby, inexorably, became a career. It wasn't a plan, is what I'm saying, Tom. I never remember a time when Dave and I would sit down together and say, let's be the next Walt Disney or anything like that. We were just doing what was fun. And then at certain stage, we found that we were all alone doing this at school and in the world. And maybe you define yourself by what you do. I mean, maybe at school you were the guy that told stories. I don't know, but we were really guys that animated. So we pursued it, because it's like we started on this strange track and we went on for a whole career.
Wow. So what was the next step after that? I mean, did you go to art college, or what was the...
Well, we were very lucky. In fact, we've always been lucky, I think. And also, let's be honest, there was some nepotism involved. So Dave's dad worked for the BBC, and he got us an interview, I suppose. With boys who use rather not very good animation. He got us an interview with a guy who was the producer of a program, which listeners of great age may remember a TV program called Vision On, which was a BBC TV program that was designed specifically for deaf children, which is a very strong, big, bold idea that I've had. It was a good program. It was smart. There was painting, there was mime, there was montage, editorial montage of film, and there was silent as well. And that was our way in. And we made very short films, 20 seconds long, in these guys, over the course of 2 years, I suppose. And during those years, we were at university. So there was I in York studying English literature. There was David in Durham studying geography. So you can see we didn't, again, when we started, we had no plan to make an animation career at all. And those were happy, innocent days. And I think that my understanding was you go to university and something interesting will turn up. That was my game plan. I went to university, met nice people, but nothing turned up. And so when it was over, you needed money. So most people had a holiday job. That was the conventional thing to do. But our holiday job was making animation for the BBC. So we were lucky. And in this time, at some stage, we decided to animate with plasticine, with modeling film. That's what people think now. That's what people expect from Aardman. That's how Morph is done. That's how Wallace and Gromit are done. That's how Creature Comforts are done. But at the time, it was a major innovation. I mean, people talk about these days technological innovation, AI or something spectacular like that. It is a game changer. Well, for us in our small way, our very small way, discovering that you could animate with modeling way was the game changer. Before that, we were doing drawing animation like everybody else, not very well. Suddenly, we were doing something that nobody else was doing, absolutely nobody else that we knew of in the whole world at that time, doing plasticine animation. So that's a strong place to be, so we were very, very lucky. I like to say we invented it, but if I'm honest, no, we didn't even invent it. We did. What happened was that we were watching TV in the dear old days when there were like 3 terrestrial channels, I think. And we saw on kids' TV a little bit of animation of creatures like dinosaurs growing up out of the ground and eating a tree, and then another dinosaur would grow and eat the first dinosaur. Very, very, very simply, but quite astonishing. And so we saw it. We said, "Wow, that's plasticine. Well, that's a clever idea." So we stole that idea. So I don't know. Nothing comes from nowhere, does it?
Well,
stories.
Things spring up, and I mean, I really started taking a big interest in mythology, having watched Ray Harryhausen's Chasing the Argonauts again on television, which I'd seen as a kid and loved. And then I came across it again sort of Christmas and that when I was 18. And so that was that kind of set me off on the direction I ended up moving in without knowing I was going to go in that direction.
Yeah.
It's a bit the same with you, because you must have been aware of Harryhausen as well. And
yes, because that film I think is his best and most amazing and memorable. I saw it when I must have been about 12, I think, for the first time, and loved it. I mean, absolutely loved it, and then continue to love it. Still, there's something so magical about it, and both the like even this strangeness, like that. It's that big bronze statue that comes from life. It's
Talos.
a grinding metallic noise. Talos. Grinding metallic noises. It moves up. It was very exciting. And then the famous skeletons that jump out the ground and fight. I mean, which is a superb thing. We got to know Ray a bit in his later years.
All right.
And he came to the studio all at once. always bringing with him a skeleton in a coffin. We have the skeleton was only about 6 inches, quite small, about 8 inches high maybe. Lived in a coffin, and when he produced that was an absolute game changer. That was breathtaking.
Yeah, no, it's a brilliant film, and my favorite bit in it, which nobody else in the world would even think about this, was something that one of the palace guards says to the king when he discovers that Jason's escaped and been helped by his daughter Medea. And he says, "The high priestess of Akate." And it's so plummy, it's this guy, a warrior from Colchis going, "The high priestess of Akate." It's so posh.
Well,
And an RAF moustache as well, I always thought, but that's another story. But, wonderful stuff.
I always think of the Technicolor, I guess, and all the men in their naked torsos were all kind of the colour of greyish copper, weren't they? It was extraordinary.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw that, as I said, at the age of 12, and something of that stuck in my mind, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Even though we never ever did the monster movie. We've never done that, like his speciality. But just knowing he'd done it, knowing he'd led the way, he was a genius as well. I mean, that's, what amazes me is he made those films. The bit everyone remembers, he did up storyboards in these shots. He built them with their metal armatures inside and their latex skins. And he then put them on the studio floor, and he organised the back projection system that filmed them, and he went to life. I mean, it's amazing what he did on his own, single-handedly. Now, if you watch an effects film today, any old effects movie, and when he credits song, there's 800 names on the and that made it all by himself. It's
No, basically, I went to see the exhibition a couple of years ago. It was in the National Museum of Scotland. No, it wasn't. It was in it was in one of the galleries, I think the Gallery of Modern Art in Edinburgh.
Yeah.
It had the maquettes, the little figures of the of all the creatures, Talos, of the skeletons of Medusa, and there was all these different films. Really, just amazing stuff.
I wanted to go to that exhibition very much, but I think COVID intervened, so I never got there.
Yeah. I kind of knew about this because I should really say how we met was because, like yourself, I'm also very lucky, and I was doing a walk around an exhibition with an artist at the museum where I worked, and there was a member of the Orkney Art Society was there and said, "Well, you're coming up, Peter Laird is coming to Orkney on holiday, and we've asked if we could do something, and we'd like to do a question and answer thing." So that's what we did that together at Stromness in the town hall in Stromness. And the one piece of animation that you showed there, because there was lots of photographs and there was lots of clips, but was the first piece of animation that you had done with a superhero character, which went on to be the name of your company.
Yes, which amuses me. You're right. The first thing we ever sold to the BBC, but our first check was this sort of superhero who didn't do anything super at all. He just wore the costume. He had the old pants outside his trousers, and we told a small story, a gag really, and we called this character Aardman because we were 16 years old or 17, and we thought that Aardvark was a very funny name for an animal. And so we took the Ard of Aardvark and the man in sheep alone, we squished in the air to make Aardman. And it means nothing. You know, all it does is it captures a moment in about 1972 or something when we made this film, and then the people from the BBC said, right, well done, boys, we'll send you a check, you know, £25, I think it was, check in the post. And who should we make it out to? He said, for Aardman. We said, that's, you know, Aardman Animations. And that was, and people accused us, cynics accused us of trying to get first in Humble. That was a mere, that was a side effect I got you, but it wasn't why we did it. We just did it because we had the name. And that was our start. That was our first sale. And nobody in the world could possibly know that we called it Aardman because there were no voice. There's no title. There were no voices. No conversation. So it's just we knew. I'm amazed to say that today now, 2025, someone's asked us if they can make a very small thing like a bag with Aardman on it. Just because next year we're celebrating 50 years of the company. So, yeah. So Aardman will finally have a very, very small moment in the sun.
Well, and what a long way he's come. I mean, the next thing that you did, I suppose, for Vision On, which, I mean, I remember watching that as a kid with Pat Kiesel and Tony Hart, the artist, who would make amazing things out of next to nothing, you know. But the thing that you came up with then was Morph. So where that idea came from?
Yeah, Wolf had the great luxury, I think, of having this space for me trying to evolve. Like if someone says to you, as they sometimes say to us, for various reasons, create us a new character. It's very difficult to get a new character from the air, from the ether. In my experience, what we do is you think of a character, tell a story, it's okay. Tell another story, oh, that's better. A third story. But by the time you're up to 10 stories, then maybe we have a character. So Morph started as a lump of plasticine. His first appearance was on this peak, popped up, and he was doing what he was designed, which was annoying Tony Hart. He rolled and right. Tony Hart was trying to do all these paintings. Morph came and messed things up. And we did that a few times, but that proved to be a bit sterile, actually, like just messing things up wasn't the thing. So he started to get his own life and tell his own stories. Some of which, I must say, the early ones, the early years, some of the stories are bizarre, beyond belief. Like you look at them and think, what were those guys thinking of? What is he thinking of? There's one where he I think Tony Hart was cutting a green pepper nut and using it for inspiration for artwork, and then maybe also for as a stamp. We tell the story where Morph had a green pepper that was as big as he is, and he sort of climbed on top, tried to cut into it with a knife. It's quite dangerous actually, and then failed and fell in. And the punchline, which wasn't barely a punchline, was him walking off wearing the green pepper as a hood. Well, but anyway, but we had the luxury to learn. So a Morph had the luxury to become somebody. One day Morph was making a statue of himself, and that was a symbol of his extreme vanity. And the joke is he's making a statue of himself in white stone, and it sort of comes to life and chases him or something. And that was a one-off gag about Morph and the living statue. And but that statue became his buddy, his oppo, Chaz. So there were two of them. And once you have two of them, it was much easier to tell stories and stuff.
Mm.
You know.
Mhm.
So we did that. We had this gig for this TV program, which was a good gig. They were 30 episodes a year. And as we went along, we would do 2 or 3 stories for each episode. So it's quite a lot of work, really. And he evolved his character. And his character was interesting. Like I have to say that most of the characters on TV are a similar vintage. And here we think of Postman Pat or Magic Roundabout or the Wombles. Most of the characters were just kind of blameless. They went around being nice to each other. And the innovation with Morph was he was not blameless. He was a nuisance in there. He was rather selfish. He was rather pompous, and very competitive in his mate Chaz. And because of that grit in the always made it interesting, and we found we had a good character on our board. And he's still around. I found, as I talked to you, I'm looking around the studio, my desk. Here we are. There we are. The folks at home can't see this. I understand that. But
Mhm.
I'll show you, Tom. So there it is.
No, there he is. There is more. For any of you that haven't seen him, he's a little plasticine man. He's a kind of a brownish, light brown color, with big white eyes and black pupils, and a big smile on his face. So he's kind of a head like a smiley face, really.
Yeah.
Over the nose.
So that's him. Anyway. That's more, and he's so. I mean, we've been doing him in strips and starts over the last nearly 50 years, so it's quite amazing. And he like all Kyle, is forever young. I mean, that's the logical cartoon character, and it's kind of the same as it ever did. In fact, if you saw his very first appearance, he had a very, very small head and very large feet, which was a simple solution, but you could keep him standing upright, not falling over. As I went on and got more and more confident, I was more confident to make his head bigger and his feet smaller, as he is now. But he's still going strong. Yes, I take it with me. We don't do many films anymore, but when I remember, I take him out on the into the world. Well, I know they were picturing Stromness. I think sliding down the height Stromness, or waving to the Humnavo as it comes in the morning.
It's I was following his progress on Facebook. I think even not the last time you were up, the time before that, when it was like, why is Morph at Yesnaby? And then it's like, he's in St. Magnus Cathedral now. What's going on?
Funny, isn't it? It's just a little joke. That's it. About Morph is that when he's on TV, he appears to be made of plastic. He appears to be about 10 centimeters tall, and he is. That's what he is. So the guy on TV now can pop up, as you say, at Versailles or somewhere like that. He can be anywhere.
My daughter Chosie's partner Phil is a big fan, and he was saying about having bought this. I can't remember if it was a DVD or a book, but it was a thing about make your own Morph as well. And he was telling about how he was trying, desperately sitting at the table trying to make a Morph, and it looked nothing like him, and he was very disappointed. And I was saying, no, you try it, I think it was going to take 12 or something around. But okay. But
Like any classic character there, like if you perhaps as a kid you tried to draw Mickey Mouse or Yogi Bear title, and they're simple. They're damnably simple, but difficult just right. More.
Well, you could tell that by the response in Stromness, after you had finished giving our conversation there. And, you brought up Morph, and there was just like gasps from the audience, looking at the presence of this teeny icon from our childhood. We're live again. Hopefully we'll be able to carry on without having sound like a roaring gale.
Just right at it kind of came and went, didn't it? And then right at the end, couldn't hear you anymore.
I suspect it might be the ferry may have interfered with it, because it does interfere sometimes with the internet, and also television signal as well. But anyway, no. Well, after Morph, what happened then? Because the thing that Aardman is famous for really is Wallace and Gromit, but that was Nick Park but he worked for you.
Yes.
Where did you find him?
Where did you find him? Yeah, you're right. As well as Morph, we made a couple of films using real soundtracks. Later, it became Creature Comforts. When I say real soundtracks, what I mean is unscripted. People talking as naturally as possible. And we would take these very natural sounding voices and put them into plasticine characters, and it had a magic to it. It was really good, and that led us into a career or a new branch of endeavor in advertising, which was, I have to say, very lucrative. I'll say that. Yeah, it was good. It was good fun as well. So it was a nice mixture of fun and lucrative. And so we started to employ people. So before they've just been Dave and me for years. Now we employ a couple of others. And then we went one day to the National Film School, which is near London, in the suburbs outside London. And we were there to lecture. I guess that's the appropriate word. And there was one bloke in particular, this young fellow, Nick Park, who was making a film using plasticine, as we were doing. And he had some of the same instincts, which is to say, quite importantly, that his characters were expressive. And, I mentioned earlier on things like the Wombles, even bless them, the brilliant clangers. The clangers are great, but if you turn down Oliver Postgate's wonderful voice, you wouldn't know what on earth was going on, and you wouldn't know what anyone was thinking. But with Morph, we worked out how to make the characters perform, actually. And Nick was doing the same thing with Wallace, but more particularly with Gromit, who without saying anything, was extremely eloquent about how he was feeling. So we met this young man, and we thought, oh, he's good, yeah. And we laughed at his story, which was A Grand Day Out, the first Wallace and Gromit story that he was working on at the time. But he was nowhere near finishing, and he run out of money. So we said, why not come to Bristol with us and finish your film at Aardman? So he came to Bristol, and he was for a very short period, he was the office junior. Like we give him the jobs no one else wanted. But that didn't last long, because it swiftly became apparent that the guy's a genius, and so you can't. Yeah, so we had to just acknowledge that. And he has an instinct for comedy, unlike anybody else. Honestly, he's brilliant at it. He's brilliant, and in the Wallace and Gromit, there's so many moments. There's a moment when he's built a rocket in the cellar, which is pretty bizarre anyway. It means the cellar must be about 4 times the size of the house. He's built a rocket, and for it to go off the moon, he has to open the allotment doors. So he says solemnly, "Allotment doors," and above his head, gigantic steel doors open up above his head, revealing the moon, and also revealing various carrots and cabbages and things that fall in because it is the allotment. And then when the rocket starts to fire up, there's a bunch of mice sitting there who suddenly all put on dark glasses like they do when a rocket takes off at Cape Canaveral. And then they're not going anywhere. He looks around in a panic and he realizes he's got the handbrake on, so he takes the handbrake off and they shoot up. I just mentioned these just anecdotally of the sort of thing that Nick does brilliantly well. And honestly, his career is just full of these extraordinary, brilliant, funny moments.
There are so many like puns and things like that that are in like posters and names on the sides of vans and things like that. That is going to be on screen for like a second or 2 seconds at the most. And I mean, and then the devoted fans, get screenshots of them and put them up on social media. And then you can actually go, oh, right. And there's all these jokes in there, which you'd kind of missed because they're only on screen for a flash.
Yes, yes, you're absolutely right. They're jokes which aren't pointed up at all, anything but. They're actually just totally in the background. But then you can spot them if you've got eyes to see. There they are. So yeah, yes, that's honestly he has the Midas touch really of like this new film he's made, Vengeance Most Foul. Where he's brought back the evil penguin Feathers McGraw. And, we discussed this, and I would say, maybe I'd say, and other people would say, "Oh, are you sure you should?" Isn't it a bit obvious to bring back an old character? Maybe you should have someone new, but he would be quietly stubborn, as he is quietly stubborn. And of course, as it turns out, everyone loves having the evil penguin back again. So he's great. So he came to us with these characters, and he became part of the studio. He sometimes animated Morph, which is it's funny. I can see it now when I look back at the old ones we did years ago. You can always tell when Nick's animated Morph because he walks differently. He has a Nick Park walk rather than a Peter Lord walk. Because animators tend to do self-portraits instinctively, naturally. So he did that. He did some TV commercials. He worked on whatever we asked him to, and in his spare time he finished off A Grand Day Out, which was a big project, big project. And then at a certain stage, we got a new series off the ground with Channel 4. Channel 4 had started up in the very early 80s. And just, again, we were lucky. Perfect timing for us. Perfect timing that we got to make films for them. Films for an adult audience, which was, which I'm proud of as well. And so we had a mini series that was called, I think it was called Lip Sync, and different directors did things, and I did 2. Nick did 1. A couple of others did other episodes. And the idea was to keep using these naturally recorded soundtracks. That was the philosophy. Although we bent the rules madly. And Nick had this idea to go to a zoo and do a recording there. His thinking was he'd go to the zoo and he'd record members of the public standing outside the cages commenting on the creatures within. So in his imagination, people would say, "Oh, look what the fat one's doing, Mummy." And anyway, he went to the zoo with a badly hidden microphone and was very embarrassed and got like nothing of any interest at all. Nothing was clever or interesting was said. So then he had the rather brilliant idea. Think, okay, that didn't work. Well, what can I do with zoo animals? And his idea was simply to record people, to interview people, talk about their lives, and transpose that into animals, which proved to be a brilliant idea. So there was a student teacher from Belfast. She was rather downbeat, I must say, and she said, "Well, I don't like getting rained on. I don't like being cold, and I find that here I'm always rained on. I'm always cold." So that was a fairly miserable statement. A miserable statement of the fact she lives in a cold bedsit in Bristol. And Nick put that voice into a female gorilla sitting there in the corner of a cheerless cell. Just not just complaining, just gently complaining about life. And then the high point of the program was a Brazilian student who was a bit of a show-off, I must say. He was kind of acting up a bit, and he was protesting about England generally and how much worse than it was than Brazil. So he was also complaining about the weather as well, but also he said he needed space. He needed space to feel he's part of the world and not just an object in a box. He said all this, and he was put in these remarks were put into a lion lying on what was obviously a terracotta, a resin log. It wasn't even a real log; it was hollow, clearly. And he was lying on it and complaining about the food and the weather and English culture generally. And it's very, very, it's brilliant. Absolutely.
I remember it well.
Yeah.
Especially the face. I need face.
That's right. So that was a sign of, Nick would, we were all working together in a confined space, very aware of what each of us was doing. And he'd go away and work for maybe a whole week, a solid week of this lion's dialogue. And then at the end of the week, or early next week, you could see it on film. They were like, "Oh, this is brilliant! This is great stuff." So I always say of Nick that we knew he was good, but we had no idea how good. And that film, in due course, won him an Oscar. Well, I say us an Oscar, but really, honestly, it's in his name. So that was pretty good. In fact, he was nominated twice for the same category. The category was Best Short Animation. And he was animated. He was nominated for both Creature Comforts and A Grand Day Out in the same year. So he was competing against himself, and he won for Creature Comforts, which was amazing. So it was amazing.
You would kind of automatically assume the Wallace and Gromit because it became such a huge thing. It's massively popular. That, you'd think, well, that would be Wallace and Gromit will win that. But Creature Comforts. You also did a very interesting little film as well, which was delightful, with an old guy talking about his experiences in the war.
Oh, yes.
And keeping the coal in the bath and stuff like this. And that was good. Yes,
I'm very proud of that. In fact, I often think I was kind of unlucky to have made that at the same time as Creature Comforts because it never won any prizes because Creature Comforts won everything. But that was it was called War Story. The original idea of these films, these unscripted films, the original idea was to try and get real, genuine eavesdroppings, to listen in on people and record them. And that proves to be a very difficult thing to do. It hard work. You didn't get much joy out of it. So then we had what sounds like a very simple idea, which was to do interviews. And if you do a sound interview like this, and you take out the interviewer, it just kind of sounds as if people are speaking spontaneously from the heart. So what we set out to do was to try and find people who were good raconteurs, not storytellers. No, not you, Tom. You'd be too good. No, we approached a radio interviewer in Bristol, and he said, "Oh, I know this bloke. You can't shut him up." He said, "It's called Bill Perry," and Bill Perry was then an old gentleman. I mean, he's probably in his late 70s, I guess, at the time. And he did indeed love to tell stories. He had a lovely, strong Bristol accent, which you don't hear very much on the radio at all. Really strong accent. And he had a whole wealth of stories, which he told, some of them about the war, about the Second World War, where he'd been an air raid warden. So we recorded this. Oh, it's great. All lovely stuff. And then the guy, Pete Lawrence, he was called, the interviewer, said, "Oh no," he said, "There's something wrong with the tape. There's like a buzz throughout the whole 3 hours of interview. There was a buzz." "Oh no," he said, "but don't worry, he'll do it again." And sure enough, he did. He went back, and Bill Perry told pretty well the same stories, which his daughter said to me, "Yeah, he's always telling these stories." She was kind of politely bored to tears by hearing these same stories. So I used that as the structure for a film, and it's very, very, very pleased with it. Very proud of it.
And I got that wrong. The coal was not in the bath; it was in the cupboard under the stair. Under the stairs, which they also used as an air raid shelter, sitting on coal.
Yeah, it's funny that because I'd never heard of coal under the stairs. Actually, I don't know if it was. Presumably it was a real thing, yeah. So the coal man must have come into the house, tramped through the house, and the stairs. Yeah. And then it was an air raid. It was, as you say, it was an air raid shelter. So he got in. He got into the sit on the coal. His mother sat on his lap, and his wife sat on her mother's lap, and his wife was expecting a baby at the time. So I reckon there's about 4 of them on my lap. He said, "It was agony ivy. I was tattooed all over," which I don't know where agony ivy comes from, but I think it's a quote from a radio program or something.
Oh, could be.
Yeah. Anyway, so that was fun, and then in the way of these things, for some reason, probably just shyness, we didn't really, we deliberately didn't meet the people that were doing the voices, because it wasn't meant to be about them. It was a story extrapolated from them, and so I never saw Bill Perry, the voice, until we had a sort of a premiere in Bristol one day, and I was standing outside waiting anxiously, the anxious director, and I heard this voice coming from up the stairs, and it was Bill Perry. It was that voice so recognizable. And he came up the stairs and he appeared, and it was almost a shock because he didn't look anything like the ridiculous plasticine puppet that I'd made him into. That was like he was an imposter.
It's a wonderful thing. Another thing I always remember, because I in 1986 I was working in North Ronaldsay, building seawalls, and there was one of the guys we were all living together in a little hut, an old, it's a World War I hut that was used as a community hall, and the one guy says, "I was just speaking to the wife on the phone, and she'd been watching Top of the Pops, which she never does, And she goes, "There's this bloody amazing video. It's on by Peter Gabriel, Sledgehammer." And, and he says, it must have been really amazing before she mentioned it. And also, she never watched the Top of Pops usually anyway.
Yeah.
But the video for Sledgehammer was always, it was an incredible video. And then I discovered it was you that made it.
Yes. Yeah. Again, wow. Yeah, lucky. That was 86, I think it was. And at that time, music videos suddenly taken off as an art form. And so we were approached by a director, an American guy called Steve Johnston, to make this thing. And he came along with Peter Gabriel, and Peter was and is very, very smart, very tuned into modern art and modern culture and so on. So he had lots of great ideas. And Steve Johnson, the director, had great ideas. So they came to us, and we had like a month to prepare, and then 6 amazing days to film the thing. And basically, simply put, Peter Gabriel himself was treated as an animation puppet. He wasn't filmed at full speed, of course. He was filmed frame by frame. And when I say frame, I'm talking about 1/24th of a second. And so if he said the word sledgehammer, as he did more than once, probably 2 seconds maybe, and he would have to mime it frame by frame. So he was still, when the camera went click, he wasn't moving, he was still, and the whole world around him was animated. So at one stage he was on a Big Dipper, and his hair was flying around in the wind. Well, his hair was full of gel, and the sort of a hair artist was there, and she'd move the hair, and we had chalk drawings of a Big Dipper behind him, and he'd take a frame and move his hair again, take another frame, move his hair again, take another frame. That, it's a very slow process. We did it as fast as we could because it's quite, it's tedious and it's tiring. And there'd been another time when he was lying on his back, lying flat, the camera looking down on him, and the sheet of glass in front of his face. And he again was miming the lines to the song. And while he was doing that, there were fish sort of sliding around on the glass above him, animated fish. Extraordinary process. We had the whole studio was full of this weird activity that Peter Gabriel being animated, chickens being animated, chickens fresh from the local supermarket.
Oven-ready chickens.
Oven-ready chickens. They came from the supermarket. Then model makers inserted aluminium wire into the bodies so you could move them and they'd stay put. And then so that took a day. So then they went back into the fridge again, and then they came out the next day to be animated. It took, I think, 2 days to animate them. So, and under the lights, so they were quite high, and then the fish were rotting in the corner, and it was very experimental and very influential. A lot of other people copied the. I don't think anybody else did it in quite that labor-intensive way that we did, but a lot of people sort of copied the effect. And it was funny, because that technique, we call it in the world of animation, we call that when a person's animated, we call it pixelation, and that is a venerable technique in the world of animation, and has been around for since the start of film, since 1905. So the funny thing is that we were making a film in a very old-fashioned way, but the effect was revolutionary and astonishing. So.
Oh, it was groundbreaking. It really was groundbreaking. Because as you said, video was really kind of taken off at that time. That was because of MTV in America.
Yeah.
And then suddenly everybody had to have videos.
Yeah.
And there was some very talented people kind of went by the wayside. I think Joe Jackson was one of them, because he was, how can I put this? He wasn't a kind of a supermodel type person, he didn't have looks for it.
Yeah.
So it was like his career kind of took the skids because of the videos, which is ridiculous, but,
Yeah, it is ridiculous, but yeah.
But very, very shallow. But I mean, there you go. But I remember you telling me that Nick Park was a bit sensitive about moving all these slightly decaying fish and chicken.
Yes, he was given the chickens. I don't know why he was given that job. He obviously wasn't fast on his feet enough to get out of the way, so he got that job. He had the old marigold gloves on, and I guess he had a face mask on as well. He wasn't happy. No, wasn't happy at all. and it was so funny because like the chickens, right at the end, they kind of broke. The wire had been bent one time too often, so it started to break, and he just kind of limped towards the end. What I tell you what, here's one for completists that want to study it closely. When the chicken comes out of an egg, as it should, a snake salmon crushes the egg, and the chicken pops out. And to get the chicken to pop out, we had, I don't know, like a quail and a partridge and some other some small chicken. 3 or 4 different hapless birds appeared for just 1/12 of a second each. So you can study the film in detail and check that out.
Wow. No, it's an amazing video. And did you make any more after that?
Do you know, the funny thing is, the weird thing is we didn't really. I made one that I was quite pleased with for Nina Simone, for My Baby Just Cares for Me.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that, because I remember that one. And I thought that may have been you, but I wasn't sure.
Yeah. Yes, it was. That was nice. I enjoyed that. It was good. It introduced side of the times, the way the times were, that there was no budget for that at all, which is to say, we just made it without any, and did it for like a cut of the action afterwards, which seemed to work out all right. And it was sort of slightly, very slightly influenced by Tex Avery, the famous animator for Warner Brothers, who did sort of, a wolf at a nightclub getting wildly overexcited at the show on stage. It was a rather a politer version of that, and I was pleased with it. I was pleased with the lip sync of her singing. My baby just cares for me, and as I remember, she was a black cat. In this moment, was a black cat, and she wasn't playing the piano. The piano was given to somebody else. So there's like a jazz trio, piano, drums, and double bass, and she was doing the vocals. In those old days, you had to change when the mouth shape changed. So you can imagine the shape of a mouth when saying ooh, rather than the shape of the mouth when saying cheese. Well, it's hugely different. And so we would have to sculpt the heads, plastering heads, every time the sound changed. So, which again is a very arduous process. Now, in the 21st century, with Wallace, for example, to take Wallace for example, he already has 20 finished mouths in slightly different shapes for different sounds, and when he's animating, the animator takes one mouth off, pulls off the mouth, puts on a new mouth, and smooths it in because it's all plasticine. So we smooth in the edges and it looks kind of perfect. Well, that's damn sight quicker than the way we used to do it back in the day when we were literally re-sculpting. So if you went from oo to e in the course of a word or two, and then back again from e to oo, it was absolutely maddening because you had to, just completely re-sculpt the head all the time. And she had red lipstick on, I recall, and it's so weird. I guess it was quite new to these things, so I would literally spit on my hand and rub spit onto her lips every time to make them glow. Again, 24 times a second I was doing that. Seems like madness to me, but but yeah, it's nice. I'm pleased with that. So we did Sledgehammer. My Baby Cares for Me, couple of fragments, and that was kind of it. Which is odd because it was having done the epoch changing video. We thought we might get some more, but we didn't. I always say what is true, that we were so lucky that Peter came along with this great song and this great vision. We would have done anybody, any if anyone had come asking for it, we would uncritically jumped in there. we did a TV commercial using the same idea, this pixelation word for the Manchester Evening News, and I always remember a most surreal scene that there was a guy who was the actor who was in the middle of the frame the whole time, and he was reading the Manchester Evening News, the newspaper, turning the pages and opening and closing them, while the world around him changed in a spectacular way. And at one stage, he's transformed. He's moved into a swimming pool, an empty swimming pool, which we then filled up with water, cold water. So the guy nearly died of hypothermia. Gradually filled up with cold water, and then a swimmer swam through at great speed in the foreground. And this was done in a movie set for a Norman castle, which in itself was built inside out of use Roman Catholic cathedral. So we were in a swimming pool, in the castle, in the cathedral, bizarrely. And Donny Osmond turned up. He was playing. He was playing in Bristol that day, and I think he'd heard that we'd done Sledgehammer, and so he was interested in having maybe having a video done. And so he came by for a chat while we were in the middle of this bizarre scene. That stuck in my mind.
Oh man, Wallace and Gromit. I mean, that became mega, and I think, the Grand Day Out was a lovely kind of gentle introduction to the characters and Wallace's extreme fondness of cheese. But then The Wrong Trousers, I think, was probably what flipped it up another notch, because it's rather kind of genius, the whole premise of that. So I remember saying when we did the conversation in Stromness, that Wallace and Gromit originally had a mouth.
Yes, he did. Yeah. Yes, he was going to. That's right. When Nick started, actually, that was Grand Day Out days. But when he sort of went onto the studio floor, as it were, he had the first scene with Gromit was when Wallace, in his usual unsympathetic way, is using Gromit as a sawhorse. In fact, so he's got he's got a trestle at one end and Gromit at the other. He's doing some sawing in the middle, and Gromit is fairly disgusted with this. And but the way he was designed, the way the whole thing was designed, his nose was more or less touching the ground, and Nick had intended to get in there with his little modelling stick and open the mouth up and have Gromit growl in exasperation, in disgust. But he couldn't get at it. It was so fiddly. So he instead got Gromit to roll his eyes, roll his eyes and do a look to camera, one of those eloquent looks straight at the camera, and and then he thought, well, never mind talking. This is great. So Nick stuck with that. So it was again. Actually, it was practical. It was pragmatic. He couldn't do anything else, and it was rather less work than anything else. So it's interesting how such a big decision would be made for the most banal reasons.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as you say, the wrong trousers is an extraordinary piece of work. It's quite brilliant, isn't it? It's so good. He's got three characters of whom only one can talk, and a background, this massive jewel heist, and it's so wonderfully, brilliantly economic and clever. So the two sort of set pieces. One is the jewelry heist, which is kind of based on 60s caper movies. I think there's a famous one that's set in Istanbul. Anyway, a classic 60s caper movie. That was where the idea came from. But then add to that the techno trousers. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And then add to that the villain is a penguin. Extraordinary. And so brilliant. So there's that set piece. And then the second set piece is the train chase at the end where they have a super exciting, high octane horse racing chase on a toy train around a terrace house.
Mm-hmm.
A terrace house, which, by the way, clearly covers several acres because when he zooms through the living room, he just goes on and on and on. It's amazing. It's just brilliant and funny.
Wallace laying tracks in front of them as they go because they've run tracks. Snatches up a box of spare tracks and starts laying the tracks down as they go. Absolutely. Yeah. Genius.
I probably observed, because I have often observed, that when he picked that box of track up, there were like 4 or 5 bits of track in it. And he goes on laying them down. He must lay down 300. It's extraordinary. It's a pure animation illusion in a way. It has no alternative reality at all. Well, it has its own reality, its own absolutely surreal reality.
There's a touch of the Clark Kent's in there as well, where all he has to do is take his glasses off, and nobody recognizes him as Superman because he's not wearing glasses. And Feathers McGraw, the penguin, just puts a red marigold glove. For people that don't know what a marigold glove is, it's just you wear them to wash the dishes. So he puts this red plastic rubber glove on his head, and he becomes a chicken. And nobody knows it's a penguin.
Nobody knows it. It's so odd. It's so brilliant. It's so brilliant. Yeah, and in fact, then almost the best line in the film is when the penguin pulls the rubber glove off again. Wallace says with complete astonishment, "Good grief, it's you!" Which everyone else in the whole world, everyone from the theatre knows. Although even, I think there's Gromit. I'm not sure Gromit ever sees that. I can't remember.
Well, he's well aware of what's going on. He's been following him and, spying on him. But another great classic that was like one of yours as well, as the story goes, was Chicken Run. Which is a delightful film as well. Very funny.
I think Chicken Run was made possible by Wallace and Gromit. Before then, we didn't know that you could take these plasticine models and put them on a big screen. We didn't. We sort of didn't have the nerve to do that, actually. Both to take, because plasticine models are normally about 10 inches high or something like that. Their heads are in total an inch and a half or something like that, and you're going to stick that on a giant screen in the movie theatre. Is that going to work? We questioned, and also we'd never told a story that length before, so an 18-minute story. But it proved to be a very great success. It was wonderful. Nick and I came up with it together, I think, as ever. I think the single seed at the heart of it was a drawing that Nick had done of a chicken digging a hole with a spoon, funnily enough. And that led to the idea of a prisoner of war escape movie, like The Great Escape. And then when we started thinking about it, it was kind of perfect, because in The Great Escape, for if anyone remembers that fine film, you've got all these heroic fellows, largely British, but a few American, trapped in a German prisoner of war camp during the Second World War. And it looks remarkably like a chicken farm, because you've got wooden slatted huts surrounded by a wire enclosure. So it was quite easy to just take the small logic of a fading chicken farm somewhere in Yorkshire with very unpleasant chicken farmer at the heart of it all, a man and wife team, but the wife is worse than the man, and you take those simple things and little things, and you make them massive and heroic. So to make chickens heroic itself is quite a big deal, because when you think about it, in movies or in culture generally, they get a bad rep, don't they? That chicken is synonymous with cowardice. So
and stupidity.
And stupidity, indeed, absolutely. Yeah, bird brains, chickens. So to take them and make them be heroic, behave heroically, and of course triumph in the end, and triumph in a very spectacular way with this mechanical bird that they built for themselves. It was great. We had this idea, and what we did was we went to Hollywood, because we did a budget, and it was abundantly clear that nobody in Britain could afford it. Unfortunately, I wish they could, but they couldn't. So we had to have American money. We met a very nice guy called Jake Eberts, who became a producer for us. And he was very experienced, great. The best of pals with Robert Redford, Jake was, and he did a number of films with Redford. And he took us under his wing, and we went with him to Los Angeles, and basically hawked our story, such as it was pretty simple, around all the studios. So we went to Disney, we went to Fox, we went to Paramount, we went to Warner Brothers, and then we went to what was then a new studio, which was DreamWorks, who only just started. And in each of these places, we would do our pitch. And the pitches we had, there's a thing they say in the movie business that they talk about the elevator pitch. This is a pitch which is so short that you can tell it to a studio executive as you're traveling between floors. And we had an elevator pitch, which was we're going to do The Great Escape with chickens. And I have to say, I still think that is the best pitch ever, because it doesn't actually tell you any story, but it suggests to me a world of comedy and absurdity, which is what we hope to deliver. So we went around all these places, met all these people, went down very well. Wallace and Gromit were very well known by those in the know. Yes, the big pitch. Yes. So our magnificent pitch was, we'll do the Great Escape with chickens, and that's very good. I think it's very good indeed, because it doesn't tell you what's going to happen, but it suggests a world of comic possibilities.
Mm-hmm.
And so we went around and met all the people, and then the last one was with this new company recently formed called DreamWorks, and there we were invited to dinner in the evening with them, and there was the main animation man, who's called Jeffrey Katzenberg, a most impressive mogul who'd previously been with Disney, and also present was Steven Spielberg, who was there to, I think he was there to impress us, which he did. So
It worked.
yeah, it worked pretty well, and it was good. I'm very happy with working with them. People often would say to me, "Oh, we haven't sold out to the Americans, have you?" And I don't feel we did at all. No, I think we worked with the Americans is what we did.
Mm-hmm.
And we took their money, and we did our best to make a commercially successful film, because we all wanted that,
Mm-hmm.
and they were good. I mean, it was, when you think about it, it was all very surprising. We had people like Jane Horrocks, Imelda Staunton,
Mm-hmm.
Juliet Sawala, English character actors that utterly unknown in the States, and speaking with northern accents, all generally very, very unfamiliar territory, and they trusted us, which was very good of them, which was great of them, and funded the studio, and it's good. But
and then you had Mel Gibson as well as
of course,
Rocky the Rhode Island Rooster.
That's true. Yes, thank you. I remember. Yes, and that was very important, as it turns out. I mean, in our story, Nick and I wrote many stories trying to, and eventually we got help from professional, which was a smart move. But in ours, there was always a character that we called the Lone Free Ranger. Ho ho ho! Another pun, by the way. A Lone Free Ranger, and that he was just he was an outsider. It's just when everyone else was trapped inside the farm, this was the person outside the farm, and we just wanted a stranger, and it turned out that having an American, or actually Australian, but having an American was a very smart move, and an important move, because I think it helped an American audience to watch the film. The truth is that we British audiences are so familiar with American movies that we understand all about their culture, their way of talking, their and so on. Whether it's cops or whether it's college kids, we know so well how they behave. Well, it's not reciprocal. The Americans don't know much about how we behave in these islands at all. And I think that the Mel Gibson character was like an American audience could see the film through his eyes, whereas a British audience would see the film maybe through Ginger's eyes. So anyway, it worked really well. We had a lot of fun with it. It was successful, very successful. I often think I shouldn't, but I can't help thinking that we would have won the Oscar had there been an Oscar at that time, but there hadn't been. There hadn't been a feature film Oscar for many years, because only Disney used to make them, and gradually the Academy, the Oscar Academy, realised that there was now quite a lot of feature-length films being made, animated films, but we just missed out, I think.
Yeah, it deserved it. I mean, it would have deserved an Oscar. Absolutely. It's a tremendous film. Which is probably a little bit of background, is that the chickens were in this farm, and they were for eggs. And if they couldn't lay, then they were taken, marched off, and executed, and ended up for lunch. But then Mrs. Tweedy decides to go into making chicken pies instead of eggs. So they knew that they were doomed if they didn't get up.
Yeah.
So,
I always thought it was a somewhat questionable business model that Mrs. Tweedy had, because she's going to get rid of all the chickens at once
mhm.
into pies.
Yeah.
I don't know what she wasn't thinking beyond that. She really hated chickens.
Yeah, that was and the husband was always suspicious that they were up to something, but
That's
paranoid. But
Yeah.
it's just the chickens were smarter than he was.
So, yeah. Which is absolute classic, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah, another one that you came up as well was the pirates and in an adventure with scientists, which is just hilarious. I mean, it's just such a funny story.
Yeah.
And I mean, an all-star cast as well.
Yeah, that's great. Yes, it was very. And funny enough, it's the guy who wrote it had written a book of that same name, and a book that I'd read and just I thought the book was just, the world of the book was incredibly funny. The playful, mischievous world of the book. And the guy, his name is Gideon Defoe, and we got Gideon to write the screenplay, which is unusual because he didn't really have much experience at writing screenplays, but he did a great job. And then we had notably Hugh Grant, David Tennant, and Martin Freeman, and Imelda Staunton. It's a superb cast. They were
Amazing.
Absolutely brilliant, and that was done not with DreamWorks but with Sony, and they had deep pockets, and so we could indulge ourselves somewhat, because when you think about it, like Chicken Mum, which is a brilliant movie, but it's actually also, well, the vast majority of it is set in a sort of a rather brown world of mud and huts and claustrophobia, because that's how it is with these prison escape movies, and that was all the story needed. That was absolutely great. But we, as a group of people, a group of filmmakers and artists and painters and designers, were rather looking forward to having a slightly bigger world to play in. So we had that with the pirates. It was fun, great fun. The team were great by this stage. All these people that we work with. So I think that they're highly evolved as a filmmaking unit, and so good at what they do. And all these incredibly esoteric jobs that the person in the street wouldn't dream the jobs existed. And that's what we do. People that make inside the puppets, there are steel skeletons, steel and brass, very sophisticated bits of engineering. They're made. The mouths were sculpted and then copied and then printed with 3D printing. And the pirate ship was a magnificent thing. In fact, as soon as I said the words, I think, where is it now? Where's it got to? It must be somewhere in the world. It was just a spectacular model. There was talk about things that nobody would ever spot. The joke was that the pirate captain was such an absolute failure, such a dud, that he bought a terrible second-hand ship from somewhere, and it was a cut and shut ship that was actually two ships very badly fixed together from different eras. So the stern end was kind of late 17th century, and the bow end was early 19th century or something such nonsense. But completely different architecture and different rigging. The guys the art director had got the appropriate rigging for the different periods and all this kind of thing. Yeah, beautifully made. And again, I was rather sad because I was very keen to make a sequel. but it didn't make quite enough money. And this is where you'll find that the film business, it's a ruthless business. The fact that everyone loves it doesn't count. It's got to make a certain amount of money. Same story with Wallace and Gromit. Well, the Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit, won an Oscar, which you think, well, that's pretty good going. Everyone's pretty happy with that. But in the ice cold, cynical world that Hollywood is, the bottom line was it didn't get enough in the box office, so they were a sequel. So we're fighting that the whole time. That's our that's our challenge.
And it's kind of blinkered as well because they're businesses. That's what they do. They make money. It's not because of artistic expression or development or whatever. It's just like, can we make cash out of this? But sometimes these things can actually just keep going. It's not just about how much you make in a box office at that time. There'll be DVDs and such like. People will be watching them, downloading them for decades to come.
Yeah, and then absolutely right. Yes.
Of all the films, great things, but the one thing that's come out of one of them, which I don't know if it was a surprise to you, was the character of Shaun the sheep on A Close Shave with Wallace and Gromit, who has gone on to have a life outside of Wallace and Gromit.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. That's a very nice story actually, because Nick invented this little lamb in A Close Shave. It had a small but funny part, and of course, as usual, with Nick Park, he had he was a living pun. We'll call him Shaun, shall we? Yes, it is. So anyway, but then he was taken over by a guy called Richard Starzak at work, and Richard is smart, very funny guy, and he took the character and created the world around him, basically, and it's based on. It's based in Wallace and Gromit. No, it's something different. Anyway, it's just the principle that they coexist with people, and the sheep coexist with people, and the people never quite see what's going on. So from the human's point of view, they're just a stupid flock of sheep, particularly annoying flock of sheep. But of course they're not. They're sentient. They're smart. They're smarter than the people. Probably Shaun is smarter than people. So this guy Richard, who we call, his nickname is Golly. So Golly, he invented the farmer, notably, and bits of the dog. And you have a great comic trio, and this funny situation of them always managing not to be spotted, not to be discovered, as they do increasingly outlandish and complicated things. And we've now done 7 series, which is like 150 odd short stories, and 2 films, and we're working on the 3rd film now. So yeah, they've been great, and very, very popular in Japan. They love Shaun the Sheep in Japan. Yeah. We had a visit from a couple of young female Japanese pop stars whose act includes basically singing the Shaun the Sheep theme tune in a very I don't know what the style is. Uniquely Japanese, anyway.
Because that was Vic Reeves. That's that originally, or Jim Muir, as his real name is.
Yes, that's true.
Vic Reeves to people of my age. But I mean, they've even got a theme park, don't they, in Japan?
Yes, they do. Yeah, it's a small one, but still a theme park. A theme park where they've recreated the farmhouse, and they have real sheep walking around. They have real sheep walking around statues of Shaun and the flock. And you can, in fact, if you feel so inclined, you can get married there. I think I might have shown it to Stromness at the talk I gave. I have an hilarious picture of a beautiful Japanese bride in full kit. Instead of a groom, she's got a guy in a Shaun the Sheep costume. So I don't know.
With wellies.
The costume.
Oh God, that was.
So I'm really pleased. Yeah, so I'm very happy with. It's good. It's a essential part of our business. Steady, and it's interesting that you can keep on thinking of good stories. Occasionally, people get pessimistic and say, "God, we've done 150. We must have done everything." But there's a lot more, many more stories you can tell. Once you've got good characters in a good setup, and if you've got that, be grateful and.
Creativity will always come out, and there will always be new ideas and more scenarios, more stories to pursue. And I mean, you do it so well. You brought so much joy to so many people. I mean, I've laughed my socks off at these since, from the days of Morph right through to the first Wallace and Gromit and all the other ones. I mean, I have, we have them at home. We watch them. It's tremendously funny. And, so thank you for bringing so much happiness into the world. God knows it needs it at the moment.
Indeed.
So,
yes. Thank you. Thank you. I mean, it's, I know that's true. We have brought an awful lot of happiness, and that's a great feeling. And I think we've been lucky, individually and as a group, we've been lucky, and our timing's been good. But it's also nice that what we do still is this handmade form of animation. In a world which, especially now with blooming AI coming along, heaven knows what that means. So taking more and more the human element out. But we persist in doing it. We persist in doing this funny old-fashioned thing, and it keeps on working. I'm happy to say. I hope people keep on valuing it. I hope it, not just for our sake, because it keeps us busy, but for the sake of humanity. Please God, let us care about something which is made by hand and with humanity.
And at the end of the day, it is that creativity. It is the art that makes humans human, A machine could come up with an idea, and I'm sure it would be very amusing, potentially extremely amusing to other machines. But, I mean, you cannot replace that human element, No. So, well, Peter, thank you so much for joining us and giving us so much of your time. I know how busy you are, and I really appreciate it. So, Peter Lord, thank you so much.
Great pleasure. Thank you, Tom. It's been fun. Been nice chatting to you.